My name is Brianna. I am 26 years old, and for most of my life, I thought my family just had high standards. That is what I told myself every single time my brother Marcus opened his mouth and something ugly came out of it. I grew up in a house where he was the golden child, the one who went to a big state school on a partial scholarship, wore a tie to dinner on Sundays, and never let a single person in that house forget it. Me, I took a different road. I dropped out of community college at 19, started over, worked double shifts at a logistics company, got my certifications online, and by 24, I was managing a small department at a regional distribution firm nobody outside our city had heard of. It was not glamorous, but it was mine. I built every single piece of it from scratch with my own hands and my own hours and my own tired eyes at 2 a.m. Marcus never once asked how I did it. He never once said good job. What he did say, every holiday, every birthday, every single family event where he had an audience was something that made everyone in the room go quiet in that uncomfortable way where you can hear the ice shift in someone's drink. I learned to expect it. I learned to smile through it. I learned to say nothing. And for a long time, I thought that was strength. Last month, my parents threw a summer cookout at their house in the suburbs. It was a Saturday afternoon, blue sky, the kind of day that looks like a postcard. My mom had been texting me all week, excited, telling me Marcus was bringing someone important from work and she wanted the whole family there looking good and acting right. I showed up in a yellow sundress, my hair done, a tray of food I made from scratch because that is just who I am. I was standing near the back porch talking to my Aunt Renee when I saw Marcus come through the side gate with a man I did not recognize. The man was older, maybe mid-50s, broad shoulders, salt and pepper hair, dressed casual, but the kind of casual that costs money. He had a calm face, the kind of face that has seen a lot and stopped being surprised by most of it. Marcus walked him straight toward our little group like he was giving a tour, shaking hands with my uncles, clapping his dad on the back, doing the whole performance. And then he got to me. He stopped. He smiled. Not a warm smile, the kind of smile someone gives when they already know what they are about to say and they think it is funny. He put his hand on the man's shoulder and he said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "And this is Brianna, the family failure. We keep her around for entertainment." He laughed. A couple of people shifted on their feet. My mom made a small nervous sound and looked away. My dad stared at the grill like it owed him money. My Aunt Renee pressed her lips together and steadied the ground. I felt the heat of every single pair of eyes that had just heard that. I felt it in my chest, in my jaw, in the very specific way your body knows you have just been publicly humiliated and you have exactly 2 seconds to decide how you are going to carry yourself for the rest of this afternoon. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not say a word. I just looked at Marcus with the most neutral expression I have ever held in my life, and I let the silence sit there. The man Marcus had brought, his guest, his boss, the important person my mother had been so excited about, did not laugh. He did not smile along. He stood very still, and he looked at Marcus for a beat too long, and then he looked at me and something moved behind his eyes that I could not quite read yet. He extended his hand to me and said his name was Richard. He said it was nice to meet me. His voice was level and even and completely unbothered, the way people sound when they have real authority and do not need to perform it. I shook his hand. I told him it was nice to meet him too. And in my head, quietly, with no dramatics and no announcement, I made a decision. I did not know exactly what was about to happen at that cookout, but something told me I needed to pay very close attention. Because the afternoon was not even close to over yet, and Richard had not said nearly everything he was going to say. Richard asked me what I did for work. Not Marcus, not my parents. Richard. He turned his body slightly away from the group, toward me. Like the conversation he actually wanted to have was the one standing in front of him in a yellow sundress, holding a tray of food she made herself. I told him I worked in logistics and distribution, that I managed a small team. that I had been building my way up for a few years now without a degree, but with a lot of certifications and a lot of late nights. I kept my voice even. I was not trying to impress him. I was just answering a question the way I always answer questions, honestly and without dressing it up. Marcus was still standing right there. He had that loose grin on his face, the one he gets when he thinks he is in control of the room, and he cut in almost immediately and said something like, "She means she pushes boxes around for a living, Richard. Don't let her make it sound fancy." He chuckled at his own joke. Richard did not chuckle. He looked at Marcus for exactly 1 second, and then he looked back at me and said, "What systems do you work with?" And just like that, Marcus stopped being part of the conversation. I told Richard about the inventory software we had integrated last year, about the routing optimization process I had pushed my director to approve, about the cost reduction numbers we had hit in Q3. I was not showing off. I was just talking about my job the same way I would talk about it to anyone who seemed genuinely curious. Richard nodded slowly the whole time. Not the polite nodding people do when they are waiting for you to stop talking. The real kind. The kind where someone is actually filing information away. At some point, Marcus wandered off toward the food table, and my Aunt Renee drifted over to talk to my mom, and it was just me and Richard standing near the edge of the porch with the afternoon going on around us. He told me he had been in supply chain for over 30 years. He said he had built 2 regional distribution networks from the ground up, and that the third one, the one he was currently running, was the largest project of his career. He said it the same way I said my stuff, matter of fact, no performance. Then he asked me something that I was not expecting. He asked me if I had ever thought about making a move. I told him I was always open to growth, but that I was loyal to the people who gave me my first real shot, and that I did not jump ship lightly. He nodded again and said that was exactly the kind of answer he expected. I did not know what that meant yet. What I did know was that somewhere across the yard, my brother was loading a plate and had absolutely no idea what kind of conversation was happening 10 feet away from the potato salad. About 40 minutes later, everyone was sitting down, and the afternoon had settled into that comfortable cookout rhythm where the food is good and the music is low and people are just talking. Richard was seated at the main table with my parents and Marcus. I was at the smaller table with my aunt and a couple of cousins. I was fine with that. I had been fine with the smaller table my whole life. And then Marcus, full plate, full audience, good mood from the attention he had been soaking up all afternoon, decided to go again. He raised his voice just enough for both tables to hear and said something about how his company was doing incredible things and that having the right people in the right seats was everything. And then he looked over at me with that smile and said, "Some of us figured that out early. Some of us are still pushing carts." A couple of my younger cousins looked down at their plates. My mom laughed a little, the uncomfortable laugh she always does when she does not know what else to do. My dad nodded like Marcus had just said something wise. I picked up my fork. I took a bite. I said absolutely nothing. Richard set his drink down on the table. He did it slowly and deliberately, the way someone does when they are about to say something and they want the table quiet first. He looked at Marcus, and then in the same calm, even voice he had used with me all afternoon, he said, "Actually, Marcus, we need to talk about that. Your position specifically." Marcus smiled like he thought this was going to be a compliment. He had no idea what was sitting right across from him at that table. Neither did anyone else, but I did. And I kept my eyes on my plate, and I did not smile. Not yet. The table went quiet the way a room goes quiet when the temperature suddenly drops, and nobody can explain why, but everybody feels it. Marcus shifted in his seat, and his smile stayed on his face, but it changed shape slightly, got a little tighter around the edges, the way a smile does when the brain behind it is no longer fully committed to it. He said something like, "Yeah, of course, we can always talk shop, Richard. What's on your mind?" Casual, breezy, still performing. Richard did not match his energy. He kept his voice exactly where it had been all afternoon, level and unhurried. and he said that the quarterly review had flagged some serious concerns about the regional accounts Marcus was managing and that there had been multiple complaints from partners over the past 3 months about miscommunications, drop follow-ups, and 2 contracts that had stalled because of documentation errors that should have been caught at the desk level. He said he had been planning to have this conversation in the office on Monday, but that since Marcus had brought up the topic of having the right people in the right seats, it felt like an appropriate moment to be direct. My mother had stopped chewing. My father was looking at Richard with an expression I had never seen on his face before, something between confusion and the slow realization that the ground was shifting under this particular afternoon in a way nobody had planned for. Marcus opened his mouth and said he was not aware there were any formal complaints, and that whatever issues existed were being handled, and that this was maybe not the best place for this kind of conversation. Richard said he agreed it was not the ideal setting, and that Monday would give them the space to go through everything properly, but that he wanted Marcus to know before the weekend that the review board had already been briefed and that the decision, depending on how Monday went, was not going to be his alone to make. Then he picked his drink back up, took a sip, set it down again. Done. Marcus sat there with a full plate of food in front of him and nothing left to say. The whole table had heard every word. My Aunt Renee looked at her napkin. My cousins found very interesting things to look at in the middle distance. My mom reached over and touched my dad's arm without saying anything. I kept eating. I did not look at Marcus. I did not look at Richard. I looked at my plate and I chewed my food and I let the moment be exactly what it was without adding a single thing to it. After the cookout wound down and people were helping clean up and carry things inside, Richard came and found me near the kitchen door. He handed me a business card. He said he meant what he asked me earlier about making a move and that if I was ever seriously considering it, he would like to continue the conversation in a more professional setting. He said his company had been looking for someone with hands-on systems experience and actual floor-level knowledge to step into a regional coordinator role that had been open for 2 months and that the right resume was not what he was looking for. The right mind was. I took the card. I thanked him. I told him I would be in touch. He nodded and walked back inside, and that was it. No big moment. No dramatic speech. Just a business card and a conversation and a door that had opened quietly while nobody was paying attention. Marcus left early. He did not say goodbye to me specifically. I heard him tell my mom he had some things to take care of before Monday. She hugged him at the door, and I watched from the kitchen window, and I felt something I did not expect to feel, which was nothing dramatic at all, just a kind of stillness. The way the air feels after a storm has passed through, and everything is clean, and the ground is wet, and the world is just settling back into itself. I called Richard's office that Wednesday. We had a 45-minute conversation. 3 weeks later, I had an offer letter sitting in my email with a salary that was more than I had ever made and a title I had never held but had been working toward for years without even knowing it. Had a name. I accepted it on a Thursday morning at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and no audience and no applause. Just me and a decision I made for myself. My brother called me that same week, not to congratulate me, but because word had gotten back to the family and he wanted to know how I had gotten Richard's number. I told him Richard gave it to me at the cookout. Right after Marcus called me the family failure. Some lessons cost nothing and some cost you everything you thought you had.